There once lived a man who resided inside a game instead of reality. He was known as Hardcore Leveling Warrior. The man eventually became a god in this alternate universe. One day, the goddess within the game descended into the real world. The deity went by the name of Zero. She wiped out more than half of the human population. Hardcore Leveling Warrior returned to reality, as he was the only one capable of stopping Zero. The companions he made in the alternate realm made him cherish the real world as well. He relinquished his stats, skills, and the omnipotent status of a deity to create a timepiece that could rewind Earth's history, even if that meant he and his friends would forget each other and their memories. But it didn't matter, as long as they had a chance to live their lives to the fullest once again. Hardcore Leveling Warrior successfully reversed Earth's timeline, bringing it back to when Zero's ambitions were still contained within the game. This rewound the world by 5 years. Zero's universe, which loomed over Earth, was destroyed and dispersed throughout the galaxy in the process. But not even gods can completely erase time and history that once existed. The 5 years of Earth's lost memory hadn't fully vanished either. Instead, those recollections drifted through the cosmos along with the remnants of Zero, fragments with the ability to attract one another. The cluster of shards formed in the first 3 years was the size of an apple. However, by the 4th year, its growth accelerated drastically, expanding to a third of the moon's size. By the 5th year, all scattered fragments had converged, restoring the original physical form known as the God's Toy. Hardcore Leveling Warrior believed he had destroyed the storybook of the past, but he had merely sealed it. And now, it was about to reopen from where the tale had left off. Zero was returning home, carrying the story within. A piece of the tale plummeted toward Earth, nearing a man in an office. It whispered to him, "Hardcore Leveling Warrior." He became startled, unsure if his mind was playing tricks on him. His name was Ethan Gong, our protagonist. A co-worker noticed him daydreaming and asked again if he wanted to go to the convenience store. The female colleague's name was Sora Ko. Ethan, still puzzled by the voice, said he was full. A blonde co-worker told Sora that she would go with her, immediately sparking Ethan's interest. Her name was Ariam Lim. She stretched while mentioning to Sora that it was already that time of day. Sora asked what she meant, and Ariam explained that it was time they restocked the Kokomon bread. Ethan blushed upon hearing that Ariam also liked Kokomon. Sora and Ariam were about to leave when Ethan suddenly asked them to wait. Now he also wanted to tag along. Sora turned and questioned why he had said he didn't want to go earlier. Nervously, he claimed that his metabolism was very fast and his stomach was starting to growl. Ariam was pleased that Ethan decided to join them. Internally, Sora thought Ethan made it blatantly obvious. What a shock. He wanted to go only after Ariam said she'd join. Ethan chuckled, believing he had managed to join them in a way that seemed natural. On their way to the store, Ariam mentioned to Sora that a comet was supposed to pass through the sky that night. Sora replied that some people suspected it was actually a flying object carrying aliens. While searching for something in his pocket, Ethan called out to Ariam, saying he had something for her. Ariam was amazed by what Ethan held, while Sora remained unimpressed, wondering how anyone could possibly think of using Kokomon stickers to impress a girl. Ariam gasped, unable to believe that Ethan had a rare rainbow dragon. He offered her the sticker, having heard that she was also a collector, while Sora felt secondhand embarrassment for his attempt to win over a girl. Unfortunately, Ariam declined the offer, making Sora proud. Ethan's approach was probably the worst in history. However, Ariam soon revealed her real reason. She was a self-collector and couldn't keep anything she hadn't personally paid for. Sora sighed, realizing she was surrounded by weirdos. Ethan was easily convinced. Instead of feeling embarrassed, he revealed that he too was a self-collector who enjoyed unwrapping packs, to which Ariam agreed enthusiastically. Tired of listening to them, Sora thought they were really made for each other. She took the sticker to put an end to their chatter. Since Ethan already had another one, she saw no issue in keeping it. He didn't mind much since he had actually taken the sticker from Carter, his closest friend, hoping to gain something from it. Upon checking his phone, Ethan wondered why Carter hadn't replied to his last message yet. He must be feeling unwell or something. Suddenly, he heard the eerie voice again, calling him Hardcore Leveling Warrior. He started feeling tense, unable to understand why he kept hearing the name of his company over and over. Out of nowhere, a blue light engulfed the sky. Everyone looked up, witnessing the meteorite hurtling toward the planet. Its shape was unusual, making him wonder if it was truly a meteorite. He spotted a grotesque eye on its surface, realizing that it was staring directly at him. In that moment, the meteorite crashed, sending a wave of energy across the world. But instead of energy, it resembled streams of data spreading over the planet. Information flooded their minds as the system began configuring the human race. The system identified Ethan as someone who had completed the first playthrough of the game. Data and reality started to intertwine while Ethan remained confused, questioning whether he was trapped in a dream. A status window appeared, indicating that overpowered characters would be restricted in Phase 1. Everything suddenly came to a halt, but Ethan was still unable to relax, worried about his friend's safety. He approached Aryam and Sora, asking if they were both okay. Without warning, a status window materialized before everyone, displaying a message. It welcomed them and announced that all living creatures had been turned into game characters. No one understood what was happening. They tried to check the news for information but found nothing, while more status windows started appearing. The system informed them that they would grow stronger as they leveled up. As they progressed, they would acquire abilities to clear dungeons. If they failed, monsters would invade Earth. It finally declared that dying within the server would mean permanent death. Ethan was desperate, wondering why the tutorial was so short when their lives were at stake. The system then proclaimed that the game on Earth had officially begun, though some still believed it was just an elaborate advertisement. A quest was assigned to all players. They had to defeat a level F monster created for beginners. A small sword appeared in each player's hand as a portal opened, allowing a creature to emerge. A training dummy materialized. It might have been classified as a level F monster, but its size did not match its supposed weakness. They finally understood. There was no longer any distinction between the real and the unreal. Ethan is now taking a taxi to a remote dungeon. As he gazes through the window, he reflects on how everyone is now accustomed to opening status screens and hunting monsters in dungeons. But there's one detail that unsettles him. He was the best player in the game, yet in this real-world version he's absolutely awful. He considers himself a sub-10, a term for players who are unable to advance beyond level 10, and wonders why he had to be cursed with such a fate. He asks the taxi driver if they're close since they've been on the road for a while, to which the driver tells him to relax. The driver even adds that he should be grateful for being taken to the dungeon at such a low price. Ethan simply nods, thinking that $5,000 is still a hefty sum. He's currently on his way to be carried by others in the dungeon. He has heard of rare cases where sub-10 players manage to unlock a new class after conquering high-level dungeons, but that occurrence is exceedingly uncommon. The driver starts talking about a girl they transported a while ago who managed to obtain a new class and even joined the Player Union Guild. He continues, claiming that the girl is now famous and that the dungeon his company operates has something special. If Ethan gets a cool class, he will owe the driver a dinner. Ethan agrees, but internally, he's furious about the amount of money he had to spend just to get carried. The taxi finally arrives at a zone where a muscular guy wielding a sword and a girl are waiting for him. Suddenly, the buffed guy starts yelling at Ethan for arriving late, despite it not being his fault. That guy is Hwatong Kim, a level 54 swordsman, and the girl is Soo-young Jo, a level 47 healer. Soo-young tells Ethan to ignore Hwatong. Despite his rough demeanor, he's a reliable guy. Ethan thinks otherwise, getting a bad feeling about him. He finally heads toward the portal as Hwatong keeps yelling. Upon entering, a lizard man rushes to attack Ethan. He freezes in fear, wondering what kind of tank Hwatong is, allowing monsters to reach the back lines. Out of nowhere, the buffed guy slashes the creature. He tells Ethan to pay more attention to his surroundings since they've just cleared the first floor. However, Hwatong turns and demands Ethan pay for additional services, leaving him dumbfounded. Hwatong starts counting each time he saved Ethan's neck from a monster, totaling 5. He declares that it's $1,000 per rescue. Ethan gets enraged. He already paid to be carried, and nobody mentioned these extra charges. Hwatong smirks, saying that $5,000 is too little to be carried through the entire dungeon. With a manic grin, he warns that the second floor will be much worse, and Ethan is free to do as he pleases. Ethan is still seething, blaming himself for not trusting his initial impression of Hwatong. As time passes in the dungeon, he notices that Hwatong is deliberately allowing monsters to attack him to create artificial rescues. Ethan snaps, refusing to be taken for a fool just because he's a sub-10 player. He won't let Hwatong extort another dime from him. He threatens him, stating that he already knows his name and guild and only needs to report him to the authorities. Tired of his whining, Hwatong slams his sword into the ground. He reminds Ethan that they're still surrounded by lizardmen and that he'll die if he tries to reach the exit. He's the only one keeping Ethan alive, so he should know his place. Suddenly, Hwatong recalls where he's seen Ethan before. He bursts out laughing, finally recognizing him as the former pro gamer Ethan Gong. Ethan is about to explode but reminds himself of his friends. After the incident, Aryam developed a mysterious illness. Carter, his best friend, went missing, and Sora works multiple jobs to cover Aryam's medical expenses. He tells himself that he can't let pride get in the way. He needs to level up to help them. Ethan bows, apologizing for his outburst since he isn't in a position to argue. He starts transferring the money and Hwatong shrugs, saying he'll let it slide this time since Ethan looks desperate. Internally, Ethan vows revenge. Once he gets his class change, he'll come after him. Suddenly, a green aura envelops Ethan, increasing his stats by 10%. It was Soo-young, who reveals that she's a huge fan of his and feels ashamed for not recognizing him earlier. She confesses that she used to follow night games and even attended tournaments in person to watch him play. Ethan chuckles, thanking her for her support, as Hwatong scolds her for wasting mana. Just then, Ethan stumbles, falling into a puddle. Hwatong bursts out laughing, mocking him for getting scared by a lizard man. Ethan tries to stand, his resentment toward the buffed guy growing stronger. His nose starts bleeding, and a single drop of blood falls into the water, which suddenly begins to glow. In the reflection, he sees a red-haired warrior instead of himself. He wonders who that red-haired guy in the ornate armor is. He calls them over to look into the water, but when he asks if they see the red-haired warrior, Soo-young tells him there's nothing there. Hwatong smacks his head, saying the only red thing in the water is his blood. After a while, Hwatong halts the group, and Ethan grows anxious about what lies ahead. They have finally reached the entrance to the boss floor. Hwatong instructs Soo-young to buff him with her magic. With his enhanced stats, he leaps toward the boss room. Upon entering the battle, a python, an A-class boss, emerges. Hwatong cackles in excitement at the sight of an A-class python. Without hesitation, it launches its venomous fangs at Hwatong. Watching the beast, Ethan is awestruck by its presence and the terror an A-class boss instills. But for some reason, it feels strangely familiar. The python crashes against the ground, but its attack is abruptly halted by Hwatong's blade. Anticipating the assault, Hwatong is already prepared for the next phase. The python starts spewing venom, but it has no effect. Hwatong's buffs protect him against poison. The third phase begins, and this time, the python unleashes Toxic Shower, a high-level spell that is nearly impossible to defend against. Hwatong calls for Soo-young, instructing her to cast her Holy Shield. She activates the spell, and a bluish aura surrounds Hwatong, granting him immunity to all status effects for 1.5 seconds. Seizing the moment, he forces the python's mouth shut, driving its own fangs into its flesh. The beast writhes in agony, the sword still embedded in its skull. Hwatong jumps up, grips the sword, and with a divine slash, cleaves the python in two, concluding the battle. The toxic corpse lies motionless as Hwatong scoffs, calling it a piece of cake. He declares his job finished, but Ethan questions if he's sure about that since a status screen should have appeared after defeating the boss. He checks his class, but to his shock, there's no change. He yells in frustration, wondering why he failed to unlock a new class again. There must be a hidden boss or something, otherwise the pop-up message would have appeared. Hwatong dismisses his claim, shoving Ethan aside as he prepares to leave. Ethan shouts at him, reminding him that he was supposed to carry him until the dungeon was fully cleared. Hwatong laughs, telling him to blame his bad luck. Ethan lunges at him, trying to stop him until he unlocks his class change. As they argue, no one notices the python's corpse beginning to shift and transform. Hwatong finally breaks free from Ethan's grip, but Ethan refuses to back down. He won't stop until he gets his class change, pushing Hwatong to his breaking point. Suddenly, a Crimson System message emerges, announcing that the 10,000th dungeon boss has been vanquished. The hidden objective of defeating 10,000 bosses has been accomplished, and Phase 1 is now complete. Soo-young doesn't comprehend what the message signifies and looks alarmed since she has never encountered a system screen in red. The system window shifts, signaling that Phase 2 has commenced, and now Earth is set to hard difficulty. Out of nowhere, Ethan shouts, unable to believe what he is witnessing. The red system message alters once again, stating that the level A python has transformed into a level SS zombie dragon. A grotesque entity emerges, bearing no resemblance to the serpent it once was. The system designates it as the Vengeful Carcass, a creature devoid of intellect, driven solely by its relentless desire for vengeance. Hwatong and Soo-young are in shock, while Ethan remarks that this must be the dungeon's true boss. Hwatong urges Soo-young to enhance him again, suspecting that a double S-ranked boss appearing in a B-tier dungeon must be an error. The abomination prepares to strike with its claws. Hwatong braces himself, convinced he can deflect the blow. However, upon impact, he is hurled like a ragdoll and crashes violently against a wall. Soo-young rushes toward him, asking if he's all right. She's ready to heal him, but Hwatong stands abruptly, screaming that he doesn't want to die, then dashes toward the exit. Ethan commands him to stay since the beast is still standing, but Hwatong continues shrieking, desperate to escape. Ethan grabs him, trying to restrain him, but Hwatong retaliates with a punch. Breaking free, he bolts at full speed, smashing through the walls of the boss chamber, unintentionally triggering a rockfall that seals the exit. Wounded, a grin forms on his face for having escaped, while Soo-young collapses to the ground. She's paralyzed, tears streaming down her face, unwilling to perish like this. The monster lunges again, but Ethan snatches Soo-young before it can strike and reassures her that survival is possible as long as they stay sharp. While fleeing, Soo-young questions what two people could possibly do against such a menace, but Ethan insists he has devised a plan. They must exploit the beast's own might against it, and she must utilize her magic since her healing abilities are highly effective against the undead. The monster raises its claws, ready for another onslaught. They continue running, but the incoming strike seems too fast. Abruptly, a voice instructs Ethan to take cover behind a pillar to his right. They narrowly evade the attack. Ethan is astonished that the peculiar voice just saved their lives. But before they can catch their breath, the beast lunges again with its fangs. Ethan desperately pleads for the voice's guidance once more. The red warrior Ethan glimpsed in the puddle manifests again, advising that now is the perfect moment to unleash holy light upon the creature. Ethan relays the command to Soo-young, who casts the spell, forming a radiant cross imbued with pure energy that instantly scorches the undead's eyes. Following the voice's instructions, they rush toward the blocked exit, only to realize the barricade is thicker than they had anticipated. Ethan warns Soo-young to prepare, as the blinding effect will soon fade, and he seeks further guidance from the voice. The voice informs him that in 10 seconds, he must hide behind a pillar while Soo-young remains in her current position. The monster will inevitably target the healer, dealing a fatal blow, but in doing so, it will create a small opening for Ethan to escape. The voice solemnly adds that this is the only way for him to survive. Ethan is shaken, and Soo-young notices, asking if everything is all right. He merely responds by asking if she trusts him. She smiles faintly, saying that as long as they work together, she feels capable of accomplishing anything. The monster charges again, and Ethan directs her to run toward the wall and remain pressed against it until he gives the signal. He knows this is their sole chance to escape together. After all, Ethan isn't the type to simply choose between the options he's given. He instructs her to cast Holy Shield on the pillar directly in front of her. The structure becomes enveloped in shimmering green scales. The beast would have easily demolished it, but thanks to the spell, the pillar is now a weapon that pierces straight through the monster's skull. Soo-young beams with joy, but Ethan reminds her that their ordeal isn't over yet. They still haven't escaped the dungeon. The creature convulses in agony, thrashing violently against the walls and floor. The force of its rampage opens a passage near the exit. A glimmer of hope finally appears before them, but then a massive boulder plummets from the ceiling. Ethan reacts instantly, shoving Soo-young out of harm's way. She screams his name, frantically searching for him amidst the debris. With his last ounce of strength, Ethan urges her to run. She dashes toward him, still unable to process that half of Ethan's body has been crushed beneath the rubble. Trembling and sobbing, she asks why he sacrificed himself for her. She refuses to abandon him and prepares to heal. But Ethan yells once more, demanding that she flee, or his sacrifice will have been meaningless. Tears streaming down her face, she sprints toward the exit, vowing to return. But before she can finish her promise, additional rocks crash down, sealing the gateway once more. Ethan, lying trapped, asks the heavens why this happened when he had friends waiting for him. Exhausted, he resigns himself to his fate. Eventually, the monster devours him. Darkness engulfs everything, and a yellow message appears. Game over. However, unlike usual, the message also states that he still has one life remaining. The system initiates Ethan's second playthrough and informs him that there is saved data awaiting retrieval. Since Ethan is unconscious, the system begins loading the data without his confirmation. The old and the new Ethan begin to merge. The system identifies him as hardcore leveling warrior, and his new data starts overwriting Ethan Gong. As more information floods his mind, the system reconfigures his body. A crimson glow bursts from the monster's mouth. It suddenly opens, releasing a cascade of red data cubes throughout the chamber. Hardcore leveling warrior's body reconstructs, his stats being reassigned. His memories resurface, both the pleasant and the painful ones. At last, all data is fully loaded, officially launching Hardcore Leveling Warrior's second playthrough on the Earth server. The beast doesn't hesitate, lunging once more to swallow the reborn Ethan. Yet, he feels no fear. Instead, he smirks and declares, "It's time for you to pay for the feast you just had with my body." The undead dragon unleashes a devastating strike, shattering the ground beneath it. However, Ethan easily evades the assault, leaping over the beast and beginning to charge a potent punch. Upon impact, the blow smashes the creature's body against the floor, culminating in an explosion that scatters its flesh across the room. Ethan stands next to the carcass, looming over a pool of blood. He starts kicking it, declaring that he knows it isn't dead yet. Suddenly, The zombie dragon's ability activates, triggering the vengeful reincarnation and causing the scattered remains to stir once more. Each chunk of flesh begins to morph, sprouting fangs and eyes. At last, the sanguine devourers emerge, grotesque humanoid figures bearing the monstrous teeth and glaring eyes of the vanquished undead dragon. Ethan remains unimpressed, sneering as he calls them disgusting cockroaches. The devourers lunge forward, eager to consume their red-haired adversary. Ethan spots Huatong's sword and flips it into the air. Snatching the blade mid-flight, he infuses it with his energy, filling the chamber with a crimson glow. Ethan surges ahead, weapon in hand, and in the blink of an eye, the devourers are cleaved apart. More spawn, encircling him, but they share the same fate, cut down by Ethan's moonlight slash. At last, the lifeless husks collapse, and he exhales in relief, reassured that his skills haven't dulled. Without warning, a fissure cracks open in the floor, and a red spine erupts, hurtling toward Ethan's face. The impact lifts him high into the air as the beast's single eye gleams with delight. Yet Ethan is merely toying with it, taunting the creature to die already and stop lingering. Gripping the spine, he yanks the remains of the monster from the ground. With the carcass fully exposed, Ethan resolves to end it once and for all. Employing the hardcore leveling warrior style, art of unarmed swordsmanship, he flips the beast, executing both a vertical and horizontal slash that finally eradicates the undead foe. He stands victorious, but suddenly bursts into laughter, only to slip and crash onto the ground, biting his own tongue. Despite his cheerful expression, Ethan feels nothing but disgust at the return of his former self. To protect his friends, he once abandoned the absolute power he had attained. To restore their well-being and happiness, he reset Earth's timeline. By sheer happenstance, he became entangled in their daily lives once again. But now, the time he forcibly rewound has resumed its natural course. However, in this new reality, he was left far too weak. To safeguard his friends, he endured humiliation and sacrificed his wealth. This final memory ignites his rage. He still has unfinished business with Huatong. He seethes at the thought of killing him for daring to rob him, considering that, thanks to Ethan's efforts, Huatong lives comfortably on Earth. With a wicked grin, he decides it's better to let him live, suffering through the same torment Ethan endured before awakening. Suddenly, a system window materializes, congratulating him for being the first to defeat a double S monster. A high-tier experience box appears, and without hesitation, Ethan opens it. Overwhelmed by exhilaration, he eagerly cries out for his sweet XP. Azure comets of energy surge into his body as a euphoric grin spreads across his face, reveling in the ecstasy of leveling up. In an instant, his rank skyrockets from level 10 to level 40. Another window emerges, revealing that he has accumulated so many points from his previous playthrough that he can no longer be classified within any tier. As a result, the system unlocks all classes, allowing him to choose whichever he desires with no prerequisites. Elated, he contemplates which path to take in this new playthrough. Still staring out the window, he thinks unlocking all classes at once is a fantastic reward for completing a playthrough. Testing the system, he selects the God class but is informed that God is not available at the moment. He doesn't lose hope, though, since it said, "not at the moment." For now, Ethan still contemplates what to choose. In his previous playthrough, he was a gambler. He would only need to replicate his strategy to reclaim the top spot in no time. However, there's a significant drawback. If he dies, he'll revert to level 1, even if he uses an item to revive. He decides to pick a different class, one that allows him to level up swiftly without excessive grinding. A wizard comes to mind. Each spell in his repertoire would be a devastating attack, even more so if he acquires a legendary grimoire. The idea of unleashing multiple spells with his immense mana pool tempts him, but not enough. He's a hardcore leveling warrior, so a standard class like wizard doesn't suit him. Now, a weapon master crosses his mind. He'd be able to wield any weapon without stat penalties, but the downside is that he'd have to farm for high-quality gear. What about a black wizard? All defeated enemies would become his loyal minions, turning him into a one-man army. Ethan remains undecided. The pressure of choosing the right path from the start feels even harder than the boss he just defeated. He starts simulating a playthrough with over 300 classes, spending way too much time until he ends up naming nonsensical ones. The system grows impatient and informs Ethan that the class selection has expired. All classes are locked again, leaving Ethan in shock as he begs the system to restore them, even promising to choose one in 3 seconds. Suddenly, another pop-up window appears, informing him that he just discovered an Easter egg. Since he didn't pick a class, the system assigns him a hidden unique one, making Ethan grin awkwardly as he tries to convince himself that he got lucky. The word jobless appears as his new class, Desperately, he asks if the system is serious, begging for a switch to gambler, but the system refuses. To shut him up, it reveals that being jobless comes with a unique perk that might be incredibly useful. Ethan is in disbelief upon reading it, considering it an overpowered ability. But we aren't shown what it is yet. Suddenly, the blocked entrance of the boss room explodes, revealing that Soo-young actually returned with reinforcements to rescue Ethan. Sitting on the floor, Ethan greets her as if nothing had happened in that room. With a grin, he casually reveals that he got a class change. She dashes toward him, embracing him while sobbing. She's beyond relieved to find out that he's still alive. She adds that he can ask for anything. After all, she owes him her life. He admits he has a request he can no longer hold back and apologizes in advance. Still crying, she blushes slightly, trying to figure out what he wants from her. With a manic expression, Ethan asks her to call him a taxi. He needs to visit Hwatong's guild to beat his ass. Soo-young is left completely dumbfounded. We are transported to Seoul, to the Yom Guild HQ. Ethan finally arrives in his taxi, amazed at how much money the guild makes by scamming people. He spots two buff guards at the entrance and approaches them, asking them to tell Hwatong to meet him downstairs. One of the guards steps forward, demanding to know who he is and which guild he belongs to. Ethan simply introduces himself and asks again if he can deliver the message. This infuriates the guard, who throws a powerful punch at him for his audacity. Ethan doesn't flinch and counters with a casual kick, sending the guard flying through the entrance of the building. He steps inside like he owns the place and for the last time asks if anyone knows Hwatong. No one bothers to answer, they just charge at him, weapons drawn. Ethan merely sighs, fully aware that things were going to escalate. After single-handedly beating all the guards, he approaches the secretary and asks where Hwatong is. Sweating bullets, the girl stammers that he's in a meeting with the guildmaster at the top floor. The elevator doors open, revealing yet another wave of guards, and with no other choice, Ethan ends up dealing with them as well. At the guildmaster's office, the phone rings. The secretary informs the master that someone is demanding to see him. Yumtong Kim, a level 70 elementalist and guildmaster of Yum Guild, is currently in a meeting with Hwatong, who turns out to be his younger brother. Yumtong insists that a triple S boss appearing in a D-rated dungeon is impossible. Suddenly, Ethan slams the door open, startling Hwatong, who doesn't recognize him at first. Ethan reminds him that he was the client he abandoned in the dungeon. Hwatong is dumbfounded. He can't believe this is the same moron he scammed for $5,000. He starts sweating, unable to process that Ethan not only survived, but also defeated the double S boss. Ethan confirms it with a murderous glare, declaring that he came back from hell just to take his life. Yumtong rises from his seat, telling Ethan to mind his manners. He doesn't care about the past, but he won't tolerate Ethan disrespecting his younger brother. Ignoring him completely, Ethan whacks Hwatong's head, squishing him like an accordion while questioning why he wasn't raised properly. Ethan wasn't even aware of his own strength, slightly horrified at how uglier Hwatong just became. Yumtong, now furious, unleashes a powerful fireball, causing the floor to explode beneath them. He activates his Flame Emperor armor and swears to burn Ethan from head to toe. Ethan, unfazed, mumbles that Yumtong should just give his money back if he doesn't want to end up like his brother. Yumtong prepares his boom boom ball, ready to incinerate Ethan's face. However, before he can launch it, Ethan whacks him too, blaming him for global warming. Just like that, the Flame Emperor armor shatters. Not even $1 million set of armor could withstand Ethan's strike. Even in defeat, Yumtong threatens Ethan, warning that the player union will come after him. Stepping on his head, Ethan reminds him that he doesn't care. Instead, he asks for the password to the safe he noticed in the corner. Yumtong refuses, but instead of forcing him, Ethan casually approaches the safe. He comments that he would have only taken half if Yumtong had cooperated. With a single motion, Ethan rips the safe door off, sending metal fragments flying. Yumtong watches in horror, unable to believe that someone could physically destroy a titanium alloy safe. Struggling to stand, he begs Ethan not to take the money, warning that others will come after him. Ethan hurls the safe door at him, embedding it into the wall. Yumtong, now trembling, pisses himself as Ethan coldly reminds him that that's not his problem. After all, they didn't care when they were robbing innocent players. The gold inside shines like a radiant sun, making Ethan grin with excitement. Looking around for something to carry the loot, he spots a golf bag, stuffs it full, and casually walks out, completely ignoring the firefighters rushing in. Something nags at him. It feels like he's forgetting something. Finally, he remembers. He wanted a popsicle because that room was a damn inferno. While eating it, the feeling persists. But no matter how hard he thinks, the memory remains locked. Suddenly, his phone buzzes. It's a call from Sora. She desperately pleads for Ethan's help. Arium is in critical condition. Ethan's popsicle falls from his hand as he sprints toward the hospital. He knows that Ariam will die in a few days because time has started flowing again. We are taken to the Giga Medical Center in Seoul. The physician overseeing Ariam is bewildered. He cannot comprehend how someone with those symptoms is still breathing. Even though in this new world, a healing spell surpasses modern medicine, he refuses to surrender and instructs the nurses to transfer her to an operating room. Sora sobs in the background, pleading for Ariam to keep fighting and not abandon her. Her vital signs begin to deteriorate, becoming more erratic by the second. Suddenly, Ethan bursts into the room, shattering the window where Ariam was being kept. The doctor and nurses yell at him, demanding to know who he is and why he entered the hospital in such a manner. Ethan simply states that he is her guardian, while the doctor continues shouting, exasperated that they are running out of time and he is only worsening the situation. Ethan remains silent. On his way there, he had been contemplating Ariam's predicament and concluded that she wasn't ill. In truth, she was vanishing due to a temporal paradox. Sora steps into the room, catching Ethan's attention. She has also undergone a transformation, but she is even more surprised by Ethan's altered appearance. He asks her if she now recalls things she had forgotten long ago, but she denies it, clarifying that Ethan is the only one who managed to reload his past self. With pain in her expression, she reveals that Ariam's condition deteriorated when her appearance changed into that of her player. She had been fine a couple of days before, eating and talking as always. But after a pop-up window announced that the Earth server had switched to hard mode, they couldn't believe how drastically their appearance shifted. She had been thrilled by the fact that their levels were no longer capped at 10, excited that they could finally grow stronger together. But suddenly, Ariam started coughing up blood, to the point that Sora feared she was going to die. Ethan grabs the golf bag and hands it to the doctor as payment for the remainder of Ariam's medical expenses. Deep inside, he knows that the 5 years he rewound were merely a fleeting illusion. Ariam hadn't survived in the original timeline, but thanks to Ethan's sacrifice, she was given another chance. Now that time has resumed its natural course, she is in critical condition because, in reality, she was meant to be dead. The pain is unbearable. Ethan himself doesn't know if there's anything he can do to save her. Sora implores him, desperately seeking words of reassurance that Ariam will pull through, but he is in no position to offer hope. What's the point of having all his stats maximized if he cannot even save a friend? One of the nurses wheels Ariam's bed toward the surgery room before it's too late. Sora tries to convince herself that there must still be a way to save Ariam. There are dragons in the sky, people breathing fire. She screams in frustration, questioning why a miracle won't happen when they are in a game where anything should be possible. That cry strikes Ethan's mind like lightning. That's right, they are inside a game. So perhaps there's a rule that could apply to this scenario. They've been trapped in a world game resembling Lucid Adventure, the original game. He recalls that in Lucid Adventure, the Python's dungeon was located next to another called the Deep Sea. And by coincidence, an underwater dungeon was recently discovered near the one he had just cleared. Perhaps the solution lies there. Ethan praises Sora. Even without her memories, she remains incredible as always, giving him strength at his lowest. He vows to save Ariam, assuring Sora not to worry. He will return soon. As Ethan leaps from the room, Sora is awestruck by his confidence, wondering why that attitude feels so familiar. Ethan lands on Ariam's bed, alarming the nurses who urge him not to do anything reckless. He apologizes to Ariam for waking her, but it will only be for a short while. Lifting her into his arms, Ethan prepares to jump as the nurses scream at him, reminding him that they are on the 10th floor. But he doesn't care. He leaps from the building. He lands unscathed on a car, startling a biker who was just passing by. Immediately after, he throws the biker off his vehicle, instructing him to call his number for compensation. Ethan starts the bike and speeds toward the underwater dungeon. Elsewhere in the city, a mysterious man tends to his plants on a terrace. Sensing someone approaching in a wheelchair, he sighs and reminds his visitor that he is currently on break. The visitor turns out to be Yomtong, who seeks the man's help in eliminating Ethan. But as he begins explaining what happened to his safe, he is abruptly cut off. The enigmatic man remarks that his rates double when his services are requested during his downtime. It is revealed that they are inside one of the Taeguk Guild's buildings. Yomtong attempts to negotiate, but a single glance from the man silences him, prompting an immediate apology for his disrespectful tone. Just then, the man receives a call. On the other end, his subordinates report complications at the entrance of the underwater dungeon. They have all been left battered on the beach, all 30 of them. They describe how a random man carrying a woman forced his way through the portal. Standing before the entrance of the double S-rank dungeon, one of the workers remarks how odd it was that the intruder had compelled every healer to channel their energy into the woman, exhausting them completely. Yet they still couldn't heal her. They describe him as a red-haired man in his 30s. Upon hearing this, Yomtong immediately confirms that it must be the same person who humiliated him. This piques the mysterious man's interest, and he decides to summon one of his top operatives, Creed. Yumtong is left in shock, unable to believe that Taguk, the enigmatic figure before him, has such deep ties with the player union. Taguk provides Creed with the target's details, a red-haired man located in the underwater dungeon off the coast of Incheon. Creed, in the middle of a battlefield, casually answers the call. Despite being attacked from all sides, he remains unfazed, effortlessly eliminating his adversaries without breaking a sweat. Given that Taeguk assigned him a task without prior notice, it must be something serious. Creed, ranked as the #1 assassin, is now intrigued by his red-haired target. Meanwhile, deep within the underwater dungeon, a colossal lobster launches an attack on Ethan and Ariam, who, now revitalized by the healer's energy, is finally able to stand. Ariam recoils at the monstrous creature, while Ethan simply muses that it would make a great meal. The lobster's massive claw descends upon them, and Ariam clings to Ethan in terror, screaming. But Ethan doesn't flinch. He lifts the beast as if it weighs nothing and hurls it against a wall, killing it instantly. Ariam stares in astonishment and praises him, while Ethan, blushing, reminds her that she can let go of his arm. Flustered, Ariam releases him, realizing she had been so scared that she hadn't noticed the situation. As they continue deeper into the dungeon, Ethan notes that they are nearing the boss chamber. Ariam then mentions that she overheard him whispering about how strange it was for her to be so frightened, and asks him what kind of person she was in the past. Ethan reveals that she was one of the bravest warriors, constantly risking her life to protect others. She reflects on the lengths Ethan has gone to for her, and after hearing about her forgotten past, pieces everything together. With a smile, she concludes that it must be because Ethan likes her. He begins trembling and sweating cold, unsure of how to respond. He certainly likes her, but was so caught off guard by her direct approach that his mind is now blank. He attempts to change the subject immediately, diverting attention to a random crab. He starts mumbling about how peculiar that crab is because it emits light when pressure is applied to its shell. Upon receiving no reaction from Ariam, Ethan turns, only to realize that she has lost consciousness. He rushes to her, pleading for her to stay with him. After a while, she regains consciousness. She appears extremely frail and exhausted, wondering what kind of assistance she can provide in such a state. While standing before the boss room, Ethan reassures her that she'll recover in no time. He hands her a lightning short sword, a rare weapon with extra damage against aquatic monsters, and with a 5% chance of activating the ability Chain Lightning. She takes it but isn't sure why, as she doesn't feel inclined to fight with it. However, Ethan tells her that she must defeat the boss. Ethan declares that she must slay the double S monster all by herself. This leaves her speechless, unsure if he's joking with her. She yells, reminding him how terrified she was of just a shrimp. She can't even begin to imagine how formidable the double S monster must be, let alone defeat it. Ethan remains impassive, stating that it's the only way and that they're running out of time. She must know that better than anyone. Ethan reveals that the reward for clearing the dungeon is the Memories of the Deep, an elixir capable of curing everything, even curses inflicted by gods. Unfortunately, it's an item that cannot be transferred, so Arya must defeat the boss alone. She insists once more that it's impossible for a beginner to overcome a double S monster. Ethan corrects her. It's not impossible, just difficult, since he knows Ariam has a 1% chance of success. And not only that, he'll be right beside her, guiding her throughout the battle. Ethan assures her that 1% is nowhere near low. After all, he's the master of winning bets. She only needs to trust him. She decides to put her faith in Ethan, and he reminds her to carefully follow each of his instructions. Ariam places her hand on the door of the Witch of the Deep chamber and opens it, marking her as the challenger. Upon entering the room, they notice the floor covered in grotesque eggs and a throne at the center. A mysterious presence begins speaking, unimpressed that only 2 people came to see her. She's Octanash, the double S boss of the underwater dungeon. As the battle begins, she calls her sisters, awakening the 3 of them from their slumber. A pufferfish, urchin, and eel girl emerge from the eggs, wielding their weapons. Ethan instructs her to stay behind him during the first phase of the fight. The 3 sisters unleash their attacks. To summon the hidden boss, the first condition is to be struck by 3 attacks simultaneously. The attacks collide, fulfilling the first requirement and engulfing the room in smoke. Ariam is bewildered. So far, the battle is proceeding according to Ethan's predictions, but it still seems incredibly perilous. As the smoke begins to dissipate, Ethan appears unscathed, merely commenting that the attack was as irritating as an itch. The 3 sisters start panicking at the realization that someone withstood their combined assault. Now, it's time to fulfill the second requirement. He must defeat each sister with a single strike. The sisters collapse unconscious while Ethan stands triumphant, with only one condition remaining. And now, The third requirement is revealed. He simply needs to remain motionless after defeating the three sisters. One of the sisters sheds her final tears, pleading with her youngest sibling to avenge them. The tears fall upon a concealed egg, causing it to quiver while releasing a dark aura. The egg finally hatches, unveiling a muscular creature with razor-sharp teeth akin to a shark's. She is Sugarplum, the youngest sister and an S-rank killer whale girl who bears no resemblance to her siblings. Ethan recognizes that she's far more formidable than the others, but the experience she grants is 20 times greater than her sisters. Sugarplum charges forward, ready to unleash a devastating punch. The impact obliterates everything around it. Ethan leaps while holding Ariam, effortlessly evading the attack. He begins taunting her, claiming that he knows the truth behind her birth, piquing the beast's curiosity. Ethan tells her that she was adopted as an egg, and that she should already suspect it. After all, she's the only unattractive one in the family. Sugarplum lunges again, shouting that her parents told her she would become as beautiful as her sisters once she matured. She throws punch after punch, calling him a liar and attempting to silence him. But no matter how many times she strikes, Ethan effortlessly dodges. Ethan starts laughing because the moment to retaliate is approaching. He simply asks her about the blood on her hands. Sugarplum abruptly halts, noticing the crimson liquid coating and dripping from her arm. He questions whether that blood belongs to her family and friends. To twist the knife deeper, Ethan tells her that she slaughtered them all while grinning maniacally. Sugarplum begins wailing uncontrollably, realizing she crushed her own kin as if they were mere tomatoes. Suddenly, an attack slashes her throat. It was Ariam, who seized the opportunity to strike. She followed Ethan's plan as if he were a time traveler. She knew there would be a brief window to attack the monster's throat while it lamented. However, the creature leaps to retaliate against Ariam, who freezes in terror upon seeing that her attack didn't work. Suddenly, the wound on the monster starts discharging immense electricity, revealing that the special effect of the sword, Chain Lightning, has been activated. Sugarplum finally collapses, her body transforming into data that eventually dissipates. A massive surge of experience causes Ariam to level up continuously, reaching level 40. She even unlocks a class change, acquiring her unique trait called Columbus. Upon checking her status window, Ariam can't believe how many new abilities she has, while Ethan is thrilled. They're finally ready for the ultimate battle. Octonash rises at last, stretching her body while commending them for making her stand. She gazes at them, declaring her intention to transform them into a merman and a mermaid so they can serve her in place of the girls they killed. After leveling up, Ethan asks Ariam if she's prepared to go all out, and she affirms. Now that she has a new trait, La Santa Maria of Columbus, she gains the ability to double her damage output if the battle takes place near water, and since they are underwater, the effect is permanent. Octonash begins charging pink energy in one of her arms as she decides who will be her first victim. She dashes toward them at full speed while Ethan shouts for Ariam to activate her special ability. She's ready, but she still doesn't know exactly how to use her skills. This becomes problematic as Octonash's attack is about to strike Ethan. With no buttons to press, she concentrates deeply on the ability she wants to trigger. For a moment, it seems to work, but then a window appears, indicating that there was an error. She failed to activate the ability. In an instant, Octonash pierces through Ethan's body, making him spit blood as Ariam wonders why, unlike in the game, she failed to use a newly acquired skill. Octonash gets slightly surprised upon noticing that Ethan is still alive after getting attacked. She looks at his expression, full of anger, and knows that someone who just got his heart pierced wouldn't have that face. Octonash tries to make sense of it. She thinks that probably Ethan knew she was aiming for Ariam, but he just stepped in without trying to defend himself, as if avoiding dealing any kind of damage. The female boss still doesn't get it. He could easily counterattack from that distance with the strength he possesses. His attitude infuriates Octonash, and she starts charging pink electricity through her body, still with her arm piercing Ethan's chest. She releases all that energy over Ethan, who can't avoid screaming from the pain. He ends up completely scorched, to the point of coughing smoke out of his body. Ethan was more shocked by the fact his plan wasn't working out than by the physical damage caused by Octonash. For a while, he thought his memories about the game would be useful in the real world, but even he lacked enough experience in this in-game universe. In the game, using an ability was pretty easy. One only had to think about it. But in reality, some abilities required a deep understanding before being usable. La Santa Maria was one of those abilities, and using it right after obtaining it was like a baby trying to solve a complicated math problem. Octonash is still amazed by Ethan. He got pierced, burned, but he's still breathing. She decides that if she can't kill him, then she'll turn him into her slave. In that position, Ethan was really doing his best to avoid destroying the dungeon boss. Even if Ariam managed to deal most of the damage and Ethan only 1 point of damage to the boss, the requirement for the secret reward would be unfulfilled, and they would lose the opportunity to get Ariam cured. Ethan knew from the beginning that restraining would be incredibly hard, and now the only thing on his mind is that he wants to make takoyaki out of the dungeon boss. Ariam watches the scene from afar, seeing all the pain Ethan is enduring. Fear overtakes her. She has no idea how she would be able to defeat such a monster. Even if she knew how to activate her skills at will, she is unsure if she could slay a powerful creature by herself. Octonash commends Ethan for his resilience, and that's why she's so eager to turn him into one of her servants. The dungeon boss starts summoning a small replica of herself, creating a little octopus with translucent skin. She drops it over Ethan's face in order for it to enter his brain as a parasite. Octonash reveals that the little octopus will start secreting mana inside his brain to mind control him. She even adds that the monsters he fought before were actually mermaids affected by the same kind of parasite. Ethan feels disgusted by the movements of the parasite, thinking that the bewitched status is one of the most difficult ones to cure. The situation gets even worse when he feels the parasite entering through his nose and heading towards his brain, where it finally implants itself. Ethan yells in agony while a status window informs that he has been affected by the skill Bewitching Tentacles. Octonash finally drops Ethan's bewitched body, while Ariam watches, completely terrified. The dungeon boss's ability makes strange bubbles emerge from Ethan's face, turning him into an egg. Inside, he starts morphing into a chimera. Ariam dashes forward and aims her sword directly at the boss's neck, but Octonash remains stoic, using her tail to send Ariam flying backward. The impact is so strong that she ends up crashing into the other side of the room, landing completely defeated and full of wounds. Suddenly, the boss steps on her, asking if she's scared of her because Octonash still senses the will to keep fighting in her eyes. Octonash summons another parasite and drops it on Ariam's face. The little replica tries to access through Ariam's mouth as the boss watches in delight, but it suddenly explodes, revealing that Ariam managed to bite it before it entered completely. With confidence in her eyes, Ariam mocks the boss, saying that her parasite tasted horrible. Upon seeing her daring attitude, Octonash decides to give her a slow and painful death. She summons a different replica, which looks like a lava creature. It grows much larger, and the boss calls it Octobomb, an explosive creature that reacts according to the fear of its victim. The more fear she feels, the quicker it will explode. Ariam can't help but shake, wondering how her situation got to that point. She wonders if she really used to protect Ethan from harm as he previously told her. She is completely aware that she's a coward, but the memories of Ethan resurface. He woke her up, stirring up her feeling of loneliness. She remembers the last thing he told her before entering the boss chamber, to never give up until it's really all over, because he'll be with her and will definitely save her. Ariam's courage starts burning. She doesn't want to give up again and wants to know what happened between them in the past. She definitely wants to know how she lived her life, and to do so, she only needed to get rid of the octobomb in front of her. She grabbed her sword and used her pioneer slash, cutting the fuse of the octopus. She finally starts understanding how to activate her skills and proceeds to slice the octobomb into several pieces before launching again at the boss. However, Octonash doesn't have a trace of worry. She says that the fuse was just a decoration and that she can actually detonate the bomb at any moment. Upon finishing, the octobomb produces a devastating explosion, scorching Ariam's body completely. Octonash bursts out laughing, mocking her, saying that she would have lived longer if she hadn't decided to cut the fuse. Suddenly, the egg where Ethan was trapped starts twitching. The boss gets surprised. She wasn't expecting the morphing to finish so quickly. Ethan's arm cracks out of the egg and immediately his voice resonates through the room, commending Ariam. Octonash gets perplexed, not understanding how the bewitchment got broken. Ariam lays on the ground, defeated, but Ethan tells her that he'll carry her from that point. Ethan summons the resurrection spell, surprising Octonash, who wasn't aware that he was a healer. A green glow falls over Ariam, as 3 angels descend from heaven for her aid. One of the angels taps Ariam, activating the heavenly touch that graces her body, removing every trace of burns and restoring her health to 100%. The 3 angels lift Ariam from the ground, granting her a temporary boost in her stats as a final gift before vanishing. Ariam stands once more, facing Octonash yet again. Ethan emerges fully from the egg, with the parasite on his head as if it were a pet, saying that the only thing she needs to know is that Ariam will make octopus sashimi out of her. Ariam is beyond surprised that her body doesn't have a single wound and asks how he did that. Ethan simply answers that it was all thanks to her courage. While Ethan was still morphing inside the egg, he received enough XP to level up. Upon leveling up, Ethan was able to break free from the bewitchment thanks to his jobless class perk called All I Have Is My Body. With it, he's cured from any status condition upon leveling. Additionally, his jobless class passive skill called Part-Timer got activated. With it, he can choose a new class every time he levels up, needing only to fulfill its mission. Otherwise, he'll lose the class and receive a harsh penalty. But if he succeeds, he'll permanently learn one skill from that profession as severance pay. The reason he gained enough experience to level up was thanks to Arium slaying the Octobomb. Otherwise, both of them would have been doomed. Ethan took the opportunity to choose the best profession for the current situation, a priest. Octonash's gaze is filled with fury upon seeing that Ethan is still far from dead. She jumps upward and yells to her remaining servants to awaken as magic runes are released from her body. The remaining eggs in the room begin to crack, and from them, the Navy of the Deep Sea appears, a group of fearsome aquatic creatures with glowing runes over their bodies, all under Octonash's command. Arium can't believe what she's seeing, but Ethan draws a big smile, excited to have finally reached the final phase of the boss. Ethan tells Arium that now she has to slaughter them all single-handedly, though she doesn't know how she's supposed to do that. Ethan dismisses her concerns. After all, he's there to support her. His jobless class moment to shine arrives, indicating that his part-time is beginning. Ethan starts emitting green light, his appearance shifting into that of a powerful priest with wings and even a nun as his guardian. He demands everyone to bow before the presence of the hardcore leveling acolyte. He tells Arium to get ready because he's about to bombard her with numerous buffs. With a maniacal smile, he starts casting his magic, imbuing Arium with an intense green aura, as she looks amazed by all the buffs she's receiving. But after a while, she notices that Ethan is buffing her a bit too much. She asks him to wait, but the buffs don't stop, to the point that Arium starts feeling nauseous and begs him to stop. A message window appears, indicating that Arium's status has turned into overdosed. She'll lose 1% of her life every second, with a 44% chance of going into a frenzied state. But all the buffs will remain. Arium's body is trapped in a powerful beam of green light cast by Ethan, who finally decides that she's pumped up enough. Octonash screams in fury, sending all her creatures to slay her enemies. Still wearing a maniac expression, Ethan asks Arium how she's feeling, wondering if now she feels capable of defeating the monster by herself, to which she confidently replies that she's 100% ready. The army of sea monsters approaches Arium at full speed. The Navy of the Deep Sea was an attack that looked like calamity falling upon a single target. Creatures like Nessie, the Kraken, and Moby Dick were already considered elite bosses, but thanks to Octonash's queen trait, she possessed the ability to command any monster with a lower level than hers. However, forming such a formidable army had a cost. She had to offer 9 of her 18 legs. She had stored vitality and mana in each of them, so casting this ultimate spell took a massive toll on her body. But her army was so powerful that she managed to annihilate her father, the king of the oceans, along with his palace. Comparing that scenario to just 2 mere humans might seem excessive, but deep inside, Octonash felt that Ethan was far more than met the eye. She still didn't understand why Ethan wasn't attacking her directly, but this gave her hope to actually win, and she decided to focus on Arium since apparently Ethan had no other way to harm her. Even if Arium was completely buffed, Octonash believed she was still an inexperienced fighter, unable to fully wield all that power. A giant eel opened its fangs to devour Arium, but she wasn't afraid and charged her sword with energy. But suddenly, the sword slipped from her hand. She had no time to retrieve it, as the attack seemed imminent, and the eel bit her, slicing her body in half. The rest of the sea creatures collided in the same spot, ravaging the arena. The Kraken joined in, smashing the ground beneath it. The impact was so intense that it released a massive surge of energy, spreading throughout the dungeon. Outside, the people Ethan had assaulted noticed the portal to the dungeon acting erratically. A light shone from the portal, blinding them. They screamed that they had to report a dungeon break in progress. The portal started cracking, and the system announced that the damage inside the dungeon had reached its limit. It was collapsing. The portal exploded, revealing that the haven of the Witch of the Deep had been completely destroyed, and that Octonash had appeared on Earth, accompanied by one of her beasts. Octonash didn't know where she was, but she quickly realized she was in another realm. She looked completely drained, wondering about the whereabouts of her 2 enemies. Everything remained silent, no other presence around. She rejoiced at not sensing them, assuming her army had utterly wiped them out. But at that moment, Ethan appeared beside her, mocking her. Octonash attacked with her claws, but Ethan dodged effortlessly. She lunged again, using the same attack that had pierced Ethan in the dungeon, but again, he easily evaded. He turned his head 180 degrees, telling her that none of her attacks would work now. His stats were maxed out. Green magic began emanating from his hand as he told the dungeon boss that she should be focusing on someone else. Ethan cast the resurrection spell, sending a green beam of energy toward Ariam's corpse that lay underwater. The beam reached her, and her body instantly reacted. Octanash sensed Ariam's presence again and ordered her creature to devour the foe completely. The beast was about to reach her when a green light burst from the depths of the sea. In a flash, Ariam drew her sword and slashed the creature. The attack was so powerful that the beast jumped out of the water, and Ariam sliced it into multiple pieces effortlessly. Ariam jumped forward toward the dungeon boss. She might be a novice, but with all her buffs, no creature could withstand her might. She threw a slash, cutting Octanash's flesh, but the boss countered by striking her with her tail, sending Ariam flying. But she immediately recovered and lunged at the boss once more. Octanash was in disbelief. She didn't understand how Ariam recovered so quickly, but then realized she had become much weaker after casting the summoning spell. Octanash began to morph, protruding tentacles from her body and launching them at Ariam. She dodged the attack and seized the moment to stab one of the tentacles, slashing it apart. Octanash was filled with rage after being wounded again, and decided to use her final triumph card. She fully transformed, taking the form of a monstrous beast with multiple eyes and tentacles. All her limbs shot toward Ariam, who couldn't avoid them, getting crushed instantly. But even in pain, with her body broken, she refused to give up and called out to Ethan for help. With a maniac smile, Ethan replenished Ariam's HP and energy. Ariam regained her confident gaze, and Octanash noticed. She launched her tentacles again, forming a cyclone of attacks that bombarded Ariam nonstop. Ethan mocked Octanash once again, saying that Ariam wouldn't die as long as he was there to support her. Ariam used her Pioneer Slash, cutting through every inch of Octanash's body. But before the boss fell defeated, a memory from her past filled Ethan and Ariam's minds. A scene where a human Octanash stood on a shore with a man, both clearly in love. Ariam and Ethan floated above the sea. She asked what they had just seen, and Ethan explained it was a memory of the Octopus Witch. Suddenly, a system window appeared in front of Ariam, informing her that she had cleared the deep-sea dungeon and would receive a triple S chest as a reward. Ethan immediately told her to open it, and she did. Ethan was deeply overjoyed. After all this time, he had finally saved Ariam and wouldn't have to lose her again. Ariam opened the chest. It contained a large potion of experience, a mysterious egg, and the memories of the deep, the potion they had been looking for. Ariam's salvation rested in her hands, emanating a beautiful shine. Ethan told her to drink it. She'd feel much better afterward. She followed his instruction with a smile, not realizing Ethan had been watching how much time she had left all along. Ariam was about to drink the potion while Ethan gazed at her warmly, but suddenly, the potion vanished from her hand. She was completely shocked, and without warning, Creed appeared behind her, holding the potion. Creed is irritated at being summoned just to get rid of two newbies. In a fraction of a second, Ethan launches at him, demanding he return the potion. Creed smiles, commending his speed, and starts thinking he might be a worthy opponent. Ethan's punch is about to land, but Creed holds the potion in front of him and tightens his grip, cracking the bottle. Ethan halts. He knows the potion is a unique item and can't be obtained anywhere else. Creed admits he was just joking. He doesn't want to take a hit, and destroying the potion would only trigger Ethan's wrath. Ethan asks him what he wants. He needs to ensure Ariam drinks that potion. Creed casually tells him to guess his motives. Ethan answers money. No matter how much it is, he'll get it for him. However, Creed tells him he's completely wrong, and in the next instant, he crushes the potion in his hand, saying he felt insulted. Ariam looks at Creed, bewildered, while Ethan starts being consumed by rage. With a big smile, Creed reveals that the only thing he wants is Ethan's death. Ethan dashes toward Creed while analyzing his opponent. It is very likely that he works for Yomtong, and by being able to steal a unique class item, he must be a master in a rogue-type class. Ethan believes his speed stat must be maxed out, since Creed was able to react to his movements, and judging by his appearance, he must be an assassin. Ethan still has a chance to save Ariam. He only needs to sever Creed's hand, so they can use the little bit that is still dripping from it. Ethan's fist is about to land, but Creed tells him to wait, showing the unique item in perfect condition. He confesses he was just toying around, and what he cracked was a different potion of the same color. Creed adds that if Ethan is so desperate to recover the item, he should make a bet with him. But he immediately states that Ethan has no other choice. If he refuses, he'll crush the potion for real. Ariam begs Ethan not to accept. It clearly is a trap, but before she finishes her sentence, she starts coughing blood. Ethan has no other option. Ariam doesn't have much time left. Holding up the potion like a trophy, Creed asks if he accepts or not. Ethan agrees and immediately sets his terms. If he wins, the potion must be used on Ariam. Creed grins, thrilled by the answer. He asks if Ethan is fine with using official PvP rules. Ariam tries to stop him once more, mentioning that he has already done enough for her. However, Ethan tells her not to worry. He reminds her that everything will be alright while emanating a strange aura that sends chills down Ariam's spine. Creed asks if he knows the rules for PvP and starts growing impatient when Ethan doesn't reply. Ethan puts on a facade, pretending to be anxious while confirming that Ariam will get the potion if he wins. Ethan adds that he doesn't know how to bet, as this will be his first PvP match. Creed says that a bet is based on special rules, so he won't necessarily die if he loses. He's so confident that he offers Ethan the win if he can land just 3 hits on him. He finishes by saying it's the fairest deal he could think of. We go back to the past, when Creed was assigned a mission to eliminate someone known as H. The player union gave him the task, but he was completely overwhelmed by H. H was a mysterious figure who appeared out of nowhere and posed a real threat to the player union. He asked Creed who had sent him to kill him. He added that he would spare his life if he revealed his employer, even offering to pay him double the reward. Even in that situation, Creed laughed, saying he wasn't a broke man who turned his back on someone who hired him. Creed asked H to stop the humiliation and just kill him. H began casting green magic in his hand while saying that if he couldn't buy him with money, he could just offer something else. Suddenly, a system window appeared in front of Creed, presenting him with the option to acquire the bet trait. H asked if he'd prefer more power as compensation. He'd even have the chance to max out all his stats. H explained that the trait belonged to the gambler class, and with it, one could steal another player's stats during official PvPs. Creed called him a liar. There was no way anyone could max out all their abilities. He shouted that he had been sent there to kill him and wouldn't believe a word he said. H began walking away, telling him to take the trait as an advance payment. After all, he was making an investment in someone he saw potential in. In the end, it was up to Creed to accept it. But if he did, he should repay the favor by bringing him the head of his former employer. A week passed, and Creed appeared at H's residence while he was watering his plants. Suddenly, Creed tossed him the head of his previous employer. But H didn't react. He only remarked that it was a quick decision, and from that day forward, Creed made an oath to use his skills for H. We return to the present, and Creed officially challenges Ethan to a PvP battle. In that moment, electricity begins flowing from Creed's hand as he starts summoning the NPC of duels. A bolt of lightning shoots into the sky, and from it, a figure begins to emerge. Revealing herself as Dakin, the NPC of duels, she appears above them, instructing them to declare what they want to receive as the reward for victory. Creed lets Ethan go first to demonstrate his generosity. Ethan continues his act, pretending to be frightened while saying that he wants the potion to be used on Ariam. Dakin confirms the bet and then asks Creed what he desires. He simply replies that he wants to steal all of Ethan's stats, under the condition that Ethan wins if he lands 3 hits. Ariam is stunned upon hearing what Creed wants, and Ethan reacts, asking Dakin if something like that is even allowed. Dakin replies that he, more than anyone, should know, but Ethan interrupts her, saying that he'll give it a try. She's about to start the battle, but Ethan interrupts her again, saying that the condition of landing 3 hits to win doesn't feel fair. He decides to remove that rule. Creed calls him insane, warning that he can't take his words back once the battle begins. Ethan nervously says that he can't rely on handicaps if he wants to grow stronger. Creed responds that it's better for him that way. The fight will end faster. He's about to start the battle, but Ethan stops him again. He says he wants to add one more rule to the fight. Ethan wants to eliminate the option of surrendering and make it so the only way to win is by reducing your opponent's life points to 0. Dakin says it can be arranged, but only if the opponent agrees. Creed accepts without hesitation, a note of desperation in his voice. Ethan tells Dakin that she's the witness of Creed accepting the rule that the victory condition is reducing your opponent's life points to 0. He starts laughing, warning Creed not to forget that rule. The fight begins, and Creed immediately jumps at Ethan. He draws his sword and aims directly at Ethan's neck. The blade gets dangerously close, but upon impact, it simply snaps. Creed looks stunned, his mind still not processing what just happened, and, in a flash, Ethan bonks him, smashing his head. Ethan yells at him for daring to place a bet with him while loading a powerful kick. His leg sends Creed flying as he tells him that he clearly has no idea who he's dealing with. Creed crashes hard against the shore, causing a massive explosion. The nearby adventurers approach to see what just hit, and they scream in shock upon seeing what seems like a corpse. But even at the edge of death, Creed begins begging for help. His health was below 10 points, and all his bones were shattered. Unlike his prior encounter with H, his pride and ego didn't kick in. Instead, his instincts screamed at him to flee. It felt like he had become a helpless insect, and the difference between him and the person who just crushed him was immeasurable. He lost all will to keep fighting. Ethan quickly approaches and looks down at Creed, who is making incomprehensible noises in desperation. Yet Ethan understands. He's begging for mercy. Smiling widely, Ethan decides to heal him, just so he can beat him again. Casting the perfect heal spell, all of Creed's injuries vanish. Immediately after, Creed starts screaming, surrendering and pleading for mercy. He loses control, even offering Ethan money to spare him. But upon hearing that, Ethan smacks his head again. He gives Creed a taste of his own medicine, pretending to be offended by the offer while stomping him repeatedly. After wrecking his spine, Ethan demands him to speak again, but Creed is unable to respond. Ethan steps closer and pretends he just heard him asking for another healing, while Creed is lost in confusion. Ethan stoically casts heal again and starts preparing for their third round. Upon hearing that, Creed begins sobbing and trembling. He jumps away from Ethan, convinced there's no way he can handle someone like him. Creed even thinks Ethan is a demon, but Ethan isn't even interested in chasing after him. He hears Aryam coughing and realizes he's running out of time. Ethan flies above his opponent, thinking Creed got lucky. The only reason he decided to end the match so soon is because there's no time to waste. He charges a devastating kick that slams into Creed's back, smashing him against the ground again. Creed looks completely destroyed, while the adventurers nearby begin recognizing him by his hair and tattoos. The men who were working for H at the shore are shocked. Creed, who was supposed to handle everything, got annihilated. They begin contacting H and live stream the scene. In a hidden room, H sits watching the broadcast, wondering if the red-haired man on the screen is the one he's been hearing about. Ethan explains aloud that Creed just used his own move, provoking opponents by acting like a fool that deserves punishment. It's all an act to extract what he really wants from his target before finalizing the bet. And after sealing the terms, he simply summons the dual NPC and crushes them once they lose composure. Creed, full of fear, apologizes for using Ethan's strategy. Ethan asks him who taught him that, since he doesn't seem smart enough to invent it himself. Creed begins crying and begging. He admits defeat and confesses that H taught him everything. Ethan smirks, finally identifying the person behind the murder attempt. He starts a monologue, certain that H is watching and listening. Ethan asks if H taught Creed about the bet ability and how to properly use it. He finds it completely unacceptable to copy his methods, and casts perfect heal on Creed once again. Creed screams in fear. He thought the fight was over. But Ethan decided to change plans, throwing a punch at him. Ethan congratulates him for taking care of his spot while he was away, while wrecking Creed's face. But now, his glory days are over, because the original creator of that strategy is finally back. Ethan decides to end the battle once and for all, charging his fist with energy and slamming it into Creed's face, launching him into the air while all of H's men watch in disbelief. Creed crashes one final time against the ground, blasting everyone around him into the air. Ethan grabs the phone that was recording the scene and speaks directly to H, telling him that he's next. After that, Dakin announces that Ethan is the winner, and the reward will be delivered immediately. And so, Memories of the Deep is finally used by Aryam. She drinks the potion, and the system notifies her that the temporal paradox status has been removed. The countdown above her head disappears, and she says that her body no longer feels heavy, as if she had never been sick. She begins crying, thanking Ethan from the bottom of her heart. For Ethan, seeing Aryam's smile was more than enough. In her tears, he sees her original name in the game, Arms, and all the adventures they had shared. Memories of how she supported him while he was still climbing through the ranks. Ethan was about to cry too, but he decides to hold back his tears until the moment Aryam regains all her memories. He tells her that Sora must be waiting for them, since they haven't contacted her since entering the dungeon. Suddenly, they hear something approaching, and when they look to the sky, they see a massive fleet of helicopters, planes, and ships heading their way. Ethan is slightly surprised by H's army, but what astonishes him more is how H prepared all of that in case the assassination failed. The other adventurers on the shore can't believe all those jets and warships are approaching their way and decide to escape, since the entire area is going to be swept away. Suddenly, Creed wakes up and is shocked to be alive, but he doesn't understand why everyone is fleeing. But upon seeing the jets, he realizes what H intends to do and bolts away at full speed, not wanting to be erased from existence alongside Ethan. The jets release all their bombs, and the shoreline gets completely obliterated. The explosion is so intense that people in the city can see everything and wonder if a war just broke out. Suddenly, Ethan's face appears on the news, being accused of causing the massive bombing at the port. They also claim that the explosion on the top floors of the Yom Guild was also his doing. They even invited Yom Tong Kim on stage, who is still recovering from Ethan's beating. He begins narrating his story, claiming to be the leader of a guild that protects people, but Ethan Gong appeared out of nowhere and proved to be far stronger. He starts faking tears, adding that his men and even his little brother are in the hospital fighting for their lives. The news states that Ethan Gong was a sub-10 player until he awakened his class and eventually turned into a ruthless terrorist. Suddenly, they receive a call from an expert who wants to share his opinion. It is none other than H, the leader of the Taegeuk Guild. He immediately declares that Ethan must be at least an S-level player. Apparently, he orchestrated the attack in advance to steal the reward from the dungeon that was under their guild's protection. H says he'll use every resource at his disposal to stop Ethan Gong, boiling with fury over the way Ethan spoke to him through the phone. The news immediately switches to a live view of the bombarded zone and notice several barriers that protected the people. The reporter is amazed that no civilians were affected by the explosion thanks to those barriers and praises H's guild for being prepared in advance. She expresses her gratitude on behalf of all citizens, but H is stunned by the scene he just witnessed and fakes a laugh while taking credit for everything. Ethan was also watching the news from a phone, revealing that it was actually him who cast all those barriers. He spots a camera and asks if they really can't see that it was him who created the shields. The camera focuses on him and starts displaying his words, claiming that he cast the barriers and that H is a fraud. But before Ethan can finish, the connection is suddenly cut. In another room, H throws the camera that was recording him and stomps on it, seething with rage. H has lost his temper from not knowing who Ethan Gong truly is, even with his men investigating him. H doesn't care what it takes. All he wants is to see Ethan kneeling before him. Back on the shore, the ships are quickly advancing, with a pink-haired girl standing on the bow of one of them. She's thrilled to see that a priest managed to block hundreds of bombs aimed at the harbor. But with that power, she's not surprised Ethan was able to defeat Creed. Inside the same ship, a man in white says that Creed was only a 2-star, meaning he managed to max out only 2 of his stats and is far below their level. He adds that a 4-star ranker should be more than enough. A purple-haired woman hears his remark and agrees, still puzzled as to why they sent 4 elite players after Ethan, considering South Korea doesn't even have a 3-star player yet. A swordsman with his face covered is standing on the ship and mentions that H is in good terms with a mysterious person known as M, and since H requested help, they had the obligation to respond. He grips his sword and draws it at lightning speed, launching a strike that reaches Ethan in an instant. Ethan is caught off guard by the swing when it is just centimeters from his face. He manages to dodge the blow but thinks to himself that it's only been 1 year since the world turned into a game, and there's no way that short amount of experience explains that kind of precision. He even got a cut on his face despite having his defense maxed out. The slash that slightly injured Ethan was so powerful that the entire city, and even its inhabitants, were sliced in half. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video and don't forget to like and subscribe. See you in the next one. Bye-bye.